All right. Next up, we have got to discuss two of the worst college football losses that we've had to discuss on this podcast, probably.
Oof, maybe the two worst.
Probably the worst week for college football that we've ever had to talk about. I think that's actually true. Like, we've talked, it's been 2.5 years at this point.
UW went undefeated in the regular season last year. They had no bad games to talk about until they lost the national championship game. So, yeah, this is something different.
So I think we break down what was an awful Washington State game first, because they didn't give up a touchdown, right? They gave up 5 field goals. No, they did give up a touchdown, but they tried to go for a 2-point conversion and failed.
Yeah, but only 1 touchdown. Hey, this is just a complete reversal of fortune. This was Wazoo's chance to end a fun season on a high note. And, my takeaways have not changed about what I think of this team. John Mateer is a star. They've got some talent on offense, and their defense is not very good. But talk about a turn of script. We were just talking about how they had lost 2 straight games while putting up 35 points. This offense has looked unstoppable. Let me just look real quick. These are the points for Washington State looking backwards. 38, 35, 49, 29, 42, 25, 24, 54, 24, 37, and 70. And they put up 14 points against Wyoming. Not a crazy score for a lot of teams. A crazy result for this Wazoo team.
Crazy. Additionally, this was at home for Washington State. Like, this was going to be their, like, hey, we're going out. This season was going to be 9-3, and we were going to take this to a bowl game,
baby. Yeah,
and they're bowl eligible. But yeah, looking at this, it's like, is this team? I feel like this team couldn't beat. I was going to say Wyoming, but it's like the worst team that in college football right now. It's like this team feels so stoppable, I guess is how I would put it. They don't score a single point in the second half after leading 14-6 at halftime. I had kind of put that game in the rearview mirror. Just a really tough stretch for Wazoo over the last few weeks, and this was really the cherry on top. It's like, okay, I guess they probably they lose to Oregon State in what was a crazy game, and I don't even know. I don't really know what to say here. Like, John Mateer,
neither of the last 2 weeks were like surprising. Like, they sucked, but we understood what happened.
Yeah,
this game, it's like unexplainable as to what occurred.
Yeah, Mateer goes for 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 16 of 22, and then he also has 18 carries for 1 touchdown, 56 yards. Like, I guess they were just like less effective than Wyoming, but it's like, why was their offense so much less effective against Wyoming? It's probably because they didn't have the ball. I guess they also lost 2, or I guess they lost the fumble. They also recovered 2 fumbles. What am I thinking? Like, they won the turnover battle.
They won the turnover battle. What happened is not that complicated. Their offense came screeching to a halt in the second half. It's crazy. You're looking for the explanation in the game stats, because it's like, what happened? Did they throw 4 picks? Did they just not get the ball in the second half? What happened? Let me tell you.
I'm looking at it right now.
6-play punt, 3-play punt, 4-play downs, 4-play punt, 3-play pick. End of game. Their longest drive of the second half was 6 plays, and it was 50% longer than their next longest drive. Shout out to Wyoming for an excellent defensive game plan. Credit where it's due.
Yeah.
But, okay, and we just read you those stats. That's what happened in the second half. Now let me read you the Washington State box score. John Mateer was 16 for 22, 73% pass completion rate for 182 yards. It's nowhere near his best game of the season, but it's not like he was completing 40% of his passes.
Yeah, it's 6 incompletions. Like, that's a good number.
Yeah. And then him and Wayshawn Parker were basically the same on the ground. 32 combined carries for 100 yards. Just over 3 yards per carry between the two of them. So they were not very effective on the ground, but 3 yards a carry and 72% completion rate through the air gets you more than 1 first down in the second half. I would need to go back and watch it so closely to see, like, how did this go wrong so many times in a row? I think this is like a statistical anomaly. I think this is the equivalent of rolling like 8 zeros in a row in roulette, where it's just like, I guess that happened,
Yeah, I think when you look at it, the Cougs were 1 for 10 on third down. Like they got all their chunk yards early in their downs, especially in the second half, and then they were just like, I don't know if they were trying to run it. Like I don't really know what their goal was in those third downs.
They were setting themselves up. There were so many. There was a lot of 3rd and 7s, but there were a lot of like 3rd and 4s, and they just
couldn't do it.
I bet you every one of his 6 incompletions was on a third down. Just insane. And there's nothing real to that. Mateer is a clutch, timely player. Like, just bad luck and good defense, I guess. Once again, I don't want to take away from Wyoming. They put together a nice win, but Wyoming's not that good.
Yeah. And kind of another one of those cases where Washington State just never really had the ball for that long. Like they had 25 minutes of possession to Wyoming's 35. Like it's just they've been losing the time of possession battle in all of their losses pretty handily. Like they just their defense is on the field for way too long. I am a big believer in that. I think if your defense is on the field for 35 or more minutes a game, it's like you're probably going to lose, even if your offense is that effective. It's just your defense gets so tired. And I think this Wyoming defense, because they were on the field for such a limited amount of time, like they were putting their effort into every single play, and it really, really showed in that second half. Like you said, it was punt, turnover on downs, interception, and those were the 5 or 6. I guess there might have been one more punt for Washington State in the second half, but like that was it.
Don't forget that 4th punt. Yeah, it was a mess. And you know what? Shout out to the Washington State defense. 3 turnovers, held them to 15 points, only 1 touchdown allowed. They played a good game, but just a weird one in Pullman, folks. And you know what? Shake the dust. They're still getting their bowl game. They were not able to cap the season the way they wanted to, but what's the big difference between them winning and losing this game? More happy Wazoo fans is the only real difference. So it'll be interesting to see if they are able to bounce back offensively in whatever their bowl game matchup will be.
Yeah. And God, I was just checking. We've been talking about John Mateer and his likelihood to leave, and he's a sophomore. I just wanted to point this out. He's a sophomore. He's going to go somewhere for a couple of years and win a Heisman. Like that's just going to happen. So one more time, I wanted to rub this into Cougs' faces because he's a redshirt sophomore.
Hey, he's definitely leaving. Yeah, but what a year it was. We'll always have the commercials with Ben Gregg. All right, let's move on to talk about a game that is so much easier to understand and explain. Yes. And that was the, as predicted, 49-21 thrashing of UW at the hand of those lowly waterfowl down south. I stopped watching when they were down 28-14. It only got worse from there. So what were your thoughts on this game?
My first thought as it was happening was we were both very right on our 2 locks of this game. I was like, smash that over because the Ducks are going to want to pound the rock and just
good call,
rush it down Washington's face. And that one worked. And then, you were very keen on the Oregon minus 19.5 line, I believe is what it was. Or I guess 17.5, whatever it ended up at. But if you were following us for that pick, you definitely made some money there. I want to talk about how decent DeMond Williams Jr. looked in terms of his actual passing of the football, and then how poor of a rushing game UW had. Jonah Coleman goes 11 carries for 3 yards. This is a guy we were talking about last week. We're like, oh, this is a guy who could be as good as Ashton Genty. Like,
whoa!
No, sorry,
I never said that. You are completely making those words up.
No, we talked about this last week and about how Jonah Coleman as a running back is just he's not as good as Ashton Denty. He's not nearly as good as Ashton Denty. But
do you mean he could have a similar performance against Oregon? Is that
maybe that's what you're talking about? I remember us talking about him and comparing him in a way to Ashton Denty.
I keep Ashton's name out of my mouth when I'm talking about comparisons. I don't know where you're getting that, but both of us really like Jonah Coleman.
Yes, and for him to have 11 carries for 3 yards is awful. I don't think he likes running in, and maybe it's the RPO style that DeMond Williams Jr. played in, and Jed Fish wants him to play through, doesn't seem to fit this rushing game very well because DeMond Williams Jr. goes 22 carries for 17 yards. That's 33 carries for 20 yards between our two main running backs, and then one guy carries. Adam Muhammad goes 4 carries for 23 yards. It was so ineffective, that running game. It was
honestly
tough to watch.
It's easier to explain than I think Yeah, it was very tough to watch. But one thing, just a fun fact on Jonah Coleman, his longest rush was 5 yards, which means he had one rush for 5 yards and then 10 carries for -2 yards. So that's fun. But honestly, yeah, Oregon's game plan going into this game was pretty good. They understand this UW team, and they said, you know what? We're going to decide to give up, 14 to 21 points to guarantee ourselves the win, because we know we're going to score more than that against this team. And the way that we're going to do that is we are going to load the box. You're going to be looking at 9-man boxes all game, and, third start Desmond Williams Jr., you're welcome to throw over the top at our NFL corners. Like, that's what we're going to let you do. That is how you get 33 carries for 20 yards by the two primary ball handlers on this team. And it also really explains, you're like, Desmond Williams Jr., he was 17 of 20 for 200 yards and a touchdown. That's a really good game. That's a 135 QBR. That's excellent. Well, it's because he was, looking at pretty open field on almost all his throws. And, Oregon was fine with that because they knew he was never going to feel comfortable enough to throw the ball 40 times. So they're like, okay, yeah, take some chunk plays over the top. When that's not working for you, you're going to be getting less than a yard per carry on your quarterback runs. Yeah,
it was it was a good showing by DeMond Williams Jr. All things considered, like he made a lot of what seemed to be the right reads when it came to that RPO.
Agreed.
They turned the ball over once on a Jonah Coleman fumble, and that probably swayed their decision to run the ball less through him too. But yeah, I think you're starting a true freshman at quarterback against the number one team in the country. You're not expecting to win. For DeMond Williams Jr. to actually go 17 to 20 in the air and take those chunk plays like you're talking about, like that's good quarterback play. That's good decision making by him and good processing. The main thing is, this rushing offensive style just didn't work because, like you said, Oregon stacked the box and made it tough. I would like to have seen this style done against a team that didn't really know how to prepare for it. Oregon really came into this game with a game plan and executed very well. They let Washington score 21 points, and that's okay.
They were fine. They wanted us to score quickly so that they could get the ball back. They were fiending for points. I just had one last note, and that's pretty poor, in my opinion, offensive game plan in terms of adjustments. Because the fact of the matter is, they threw the ball 20 times. They rushed the ball 37 times. Almost twice as many rushes as passes. The passing game was effective. Running the ball was a complete fucking waste of time. So why weren't they throwing the ball 40 times? Hey, Desmond, take the top off. Let's go. Who cares? We're playing the number one team in the country. Nobody's expecting us to win. Why are you committing? He's averaging, 17 completions for 200 yards. He's averaging over 10 yards per completion, and he's hitting them 85% of the time. And they run the ball 33 times while averaging half a yard per attempt. That's horrible. You can't stay committed to that when you see it go wrong. So I was very disappointed in the game plan.
Let me give you the reason for that. They want DeMond Williams Jr. to do this in the future. They want him to have this RPO style and be able to make these passes and do all these things in the future. They know they're not going to win this game. They kind of come into it with that being their mentality. And DeMond Williams Jr. took that, took the rushing game on the chin, and he got tackled 22 times. He had a tough time rushing the ball as well. But giving him that time to get those reps in is really what's going to be important for this team moving forward.
I guess. Is that even good practice for running RPO? I guess he's really good at being tackled by very strong defensive linemen now, but it seems like all you're doing is risking injury or making him more passive. But we'll see. I hear what you're saying. The point is sound.
Yeah. Either way, we don't need to talk about this game anymore. We had to get that one off our chests.
Defensively, I have nothing to say. Oregon is a lot better, and they scored a lot of points.
Yes.